Behavioural-based interview questions and answers. In my last video, What is a behavioural interview? I promised you 4 example answers to some of the most difficult behavioural-based interview questions. 1. How do you handle conflict? 2. What makes an effective communicator? 3. What does success look like to you? And 4. How do you handle failure? So in this video, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm also going to break down the strongest parts of each answer so that you can use something similar in your own interview. I'm Amri Celeste, an interview coach and HR recruitment specialist with over 10 years hiring experience. And on this channel, I make videos to help you secure the job that you want by covering tough interview questions and answers and interview preparation. So if you're job hunting, do like and subscribe. So first, what is a behavioural interview? Briefly, a behavioural interview is where your interviewer is assessing your behaviours, and this covers a wide range of traits, so things like communication, and they're assessing your behaviours in different types of situations. If you're interviewing, it's extremely helpful to fully understand what a behavioural interview is, because even if your interview is not behavioural, you will almost definitely be asked behavioural-based interview questions in your interview. So even if it's a competency interview, a situational interview, or any other type. So if you want to know how to pass a behavioural interview and what to avoid, watch this video. It covers all of those things plus more. Today's video is a full focus on behavioural-based interview questions and answers and showing you what elements to include in your own answer. Question 1 is, how do you handle conflict? Now, I have shared an example answer to a similar question, tell me about a time you had conflict at work, in my top 10 situational interview questions and answers video, because conflict-related questions can double as both situational and behavioural interview questions. And I share a solid example answer to that question in that video using the STAR method, which I will explain later. So if you want to see the answer to the situational version, then I recommend watching that video, which I'll link in the description below. So an example answer to the behavioural question, how do you handle conflict, is: part of my job as a receptionist is to ensure that visitors are signed into the building. This is for security purposes as well as safety reasons, for example, in cases of a fire. A manager kept bringing visitors into the building for various meetings without signing them in. This caused regular conflict and we became frustrated with each other. I realised in order to handle this conflict and resolve it, I needed to understand things from his perspective. I sat down with him to understand why he kept skipping this process and explained how this made my job more challenging. He explained that he found the process slow and frustrating as there were often queues in reception which made him late for meetings. I empathised with this and spoke to the head of security about how we could make this process mandatory, but also faster and more efficient so it was less frustrating for managers. The result was that a set of security barriers were installed in reception, which meant that visitors and staff needed electronic passes to get into the building, which made it compulsory. But this also made the process much faster in 2 ways. First, visitor details were sent in advance, which meant they only needed to collect their pass in reception instead of pausing to sign in, which reduced queues. Second, the new electronic passes automatically logged visitors as they went in or out of the building, instead of us needing to log this manually, which saved time. Now, this answer shows your behaviours in multiple areas, but I also used the STAR technique, also known as the STAR method, to answer the question. Now, if you don't know what this is, STAR stands for situation, task, action, result. And these are the points to address in your answer to tighten it up. It also ensures that your answer is hyper relevant to the question and covers all of the points the interviewer will be assessing you for. It's a brilliant method to use, and I explain the STAR technique in this video, and I include an example answer showing you how to use the STAR technique. Highly recommended. It's a powerful tool. So I'll link that up here and down below in the description. Now let's look at the strongest parts of that answer and how you can use something similar in your own interview. So first, this answer describes why the situation is an issue before even moving into the task created from that situation. So if this person doesn't sign in visitors, it's a security issue and a health and safety issue, such as if there is a fire in the building. So in your own answer, make it clear what the conflict was. Maybe a disgruntled colleague, someone not pulling their weight, or not adhering to a process that you need in order to get your job done properly. The first time this answer addresses behaviours is where this person gets frustrated and realises that they needed to understand things from the manager's perspective and decides to sit down with them. Now, this is really important because the behaviour shown here is patience and a willingness to empathise rather than to retaliate in a way that could have made the situation worse. So this person could have reported that manager to their boss, or put up a notice period saying you must sign in visitors, or send them an angry or passive-aggressive email. But by choosing to sit down with this manager, they were able to understand why they did this and ultimately incorporate the feedback into the final result. In your own answer, it's important to show that your approach included communication and shows how you opened up a line of communication with the person you have conflict with in order to resolve it. And also show that you took steps to understand that person before you took any actions. Additionally, when you sit down with someone, it often removes a lot of tension, which is why it's such an effective way to handle conflict. So when this person sat down with the manager, they listened, which is an important skill to demonstrate because when you're going through conflict with someone that's making your job more difficult, it's often the last thing in the world you want to do. But if you show that you took an active interest in listening to this person, it shows your emotional maturity and how you apply that to work situations. Then in this answer, I've shown how this person took time to think about how to make that process less frustrating for the manager. So still thinking of the other person, not just the outcome they need. So thoughtfulness is another important behaviour to show in your answer. Then in the result, there were new security barriers so that this person can make sure they're doing their job properly and logging visitors, but the process was faster in 2 ways, which would help to resolve the conflict as it was a smoother and more modern process. So in your own answer, if you can show how you took initiative to modernize a process or how you handled a conflict by creating multiple solutions, that will really boost your answer. But if you can't think of multiple solutions and you can just think of one simple solution, that's fine too. I always say that if in doubt, keep it super simple because it will streamline your answer and it will make sure that it's concise and meaningful. Let me know your thoughts on whether you're finding this answer helpful. Just leave a comment in the comments below and let me know. Also, if you're getting value from this video, please do click like. It makes a massive difference and ensures this video is shown to more people struggling with behavioural-based interview questions and answers. Question 2 is, what makes an effective communicator? Now, the answer to this will highly depend on the role you're interviewing for, but no matter which role it is, effective communication will be required if they ask this question. It's only the type of communication needed that will differ. For example, if you're interviewing for a role where you would be communicating with people in different countries that speak multiple different languages, your communication skills would need to be different than if you were interviewing for a role where you were working with, say, the elderly or with children. If you were in a sales role, for example, your communication style needs to include confidence and persuasiveness. If you were in a technical role, you might need to know how to communicate very technical terms in a clear and simple way to people who are not tech savvy. So this answer will cover a few key areas of what is commonly expected from an effective communicator. I've used a customer service role in this example because customer service covers a wide range of different communication styles. I think in order to be an effective communicator, you need 3 skills. First is effective listening skills. I think that strong communication begins with effective listening. In a customer service role such as this, I believe you really need to listen to customers, not just hear what they say, but understand what they mean and let them know that you understand so that you can assist them in the best possible way. I imagine one of the most frustrating things for a customer is to explain a query or a problem and feel as though the person on the other end of the phone is not really listening or doesn't really care. Second is empathy, or at least some level of emotional intelligence. I think this is important because I don't think you can achieve the first skill of effective listening if you're not empathetic. I believe they're both tied in together, as empathy is the skill of understanding the emotions and therefore the motivations behind someone's words or actions. Third is flexibility in your communication style. I think you can only communicate effectively if you can communicate with different types of people. Some people are very emotional or expressive, some are very loud or they talk very fast. Some people don't say much, they only use a few words, but they may still be feeling very emotional. They may just not express it in the same way as somebody who outwardly expresses their emotion with lots of words. So it's important to understand your own communication style so that you can be flexible and change it to match the person you're speaking with in order to connect with them in the most effective way. For example, with my communication style, I'm quite expressive. So I use a lot of hand movements, a lot of facial expressions. Sometimes I talk very fast. So it's a good thing that YouTube has a setting to slow down the video for when I get carried away. But I know this because I'm self-aware when it comes to my communication style. And I've become this way through psychometric tests, feedback from colleagues, clients, friends, and family over the years. And I encourage feedback so that I can learn and grow. I've even had comments left on a couple of my videos that I was talking very fast. So of course, if you also have feedback, then do pop it in the comments below. So I would describe my communication style as flexible expressive, because even though I am very expressive with my style, if I'm communicating with somebody who speaks very slowly or they're very quiet, I am not very loud with lots of big wide hand movements. I will mirror their style a little bit closer so that I can connect with them in the most effective way. Now, after that answer, you might be wondering, how can I discover my own communication style? I would recommend starting simple and typing the question into Google, and you'll have a ton of personality and communication quizzes that pop up and will give you the results. But also on a kind of more simpler way, you can also just ask for feedback from colleagues, friends, family, or your boss if you have regular one-to-one meetings at work. So one of the strongest things about this answer is that it's in 3 parts. So you're almost giving 3 answers in one. When you say there are multiple things that make an effective communicator, they're all linked in together, because you can't flex your communication style or listen effectively if you can't empathize, all of which are included in the answer. But it doesn't just give the skills, it explains each skill. So you might notice that I did not use the STAR method here. This is because this is a 3-part answer, and it would be an inappropriately long answer in an interview to add a situational example to each one of those 3 skills. So instead, you're explaining the meaning behind each skill, why you need them, and how they link to effective communication, which creates an answer just as powerful as one that includes the STAR technique, because you're still demonstrating your understanding of each of the behaviors. If you're really liking these answers so far, you can grab a copy of my Top 20 Interview Answers guide. This guide is packed with answers for your job interview. It includes answers to difficult questions like, how do you handle pressure at work? Why should we give you the job? And what is your greatest weakness? Plus, I've included an important bonus question and what you should be asking your interviewers at the end of your interview. It's completely free, and you can grab yours by clicking the link in the description below this video. Question 3 is, how do you handle failure? An example answer is, I think that failure is subjective. What one person considers failure, another person considers success. Let me give an example. In my previous role, I was given a revenue target. If you don't know what this means, this is when an employee, normally in sales or a senior level position, is told to bring in or essentially make a certain amount of money for the company. So let's say your revenue target was £5,000, then you need to bring in £5,000 that month for the company. So let's get back to the example answer. So in my previous role, I was given a revenue target that was very ambitious. The company had big plans and expected me to bring in more than I ever had in the past. So there was an immense amount of pressure to meet this huge target and achieve a high volume of sales. In the end, I did not meet my target. So I could have considered this a failure. However, when I reviewed how much work I had actually done, it turned out that I had surpassed the amount of sales I had ever achieved and set a new record. I surpassed any of my previous targets, and I went above and beyond in order to try to meet this new revenue target. I worked late, and I attended networking events that I wouldn't normally attend in my role. I knew this target was something I had never achieved before, so I would likely need to take actions I hadn't taken before in order to meet that goal. When I look back at what I had achieved, the contacts and connections I made through networking, the new ideas I came up with just from trying these new things, I saw that although I didn't meet the monetary target, there was success along the way, so I shifted my perspective to consider the successes throughout the experience. There are a ton of strong points you can use in this answer, so even if you've never been given a revenue target or worked in sales, if you've worked in a job, the key points in this answer can still work for you. Or even if you don't have experience, you haven't worked in a job, but you've worked in a project, whether at college, maybe at uni, or even if you have a personal hobby, like for example, you wanted to learn to play the keyboard, you can use a time from any of those examples where you didn't meet the original goal that you were set or that you set for yourself. But along the way, you went through certain experiences. Maybe you made new connections, learned a new skill, or met a new contact or a new set of people. Maybe you learned a new or more efficient way of doing something. On this channel, for example, I wanted to share the knowledge that I gained after doing thousands of interviews and help struggling candidates become a candidate of choice with bags of confidence where they could strut into an interview and feel really confident that they were going to get an offer. And I intended to upload videos daily or at least a few times a week. But it's safe to say that I did not meet that goal. But I learned a whole host of other things like research and editing and things like that. So in your own answer, if you can show how you shifted your perspective, just like in this answer, and list out things you learned along the way, that's a great demonstration of how you handle failure, or at least perceived failure. So the next question is, what does success look like to you? A strong example answer is, I believe that success is open to interpretation. One person's success could be a promotion to a leadership position within a year. For another, it could be earning over $50,000 a year. For example, if someone worked in a role for 10 years without a promotion, but was genuinely happy in a job they've always wanted, they always performed well, had a great relationship with colleagues, and another person started alongside them but was regularly promoted and ended up as head of that department 10 years later, I wouldn't consider the head of department more successful because both people achieved their long-term goal. In terms of what success looks like for my career, I would feel successful working in a role where I can contribute and make an actual difference to the company. I would love to have great working relationships with my team, a rewarding working environment, and know that the company that I work for has strong values, particularly relating to their staff and customers. Now, of course, your idea of success is likely to be different to this example, but this is a strong template for how you can begin to form your answer. So let's just look at the strongest parts here. So first of all, it starts off in a similar way to the answer to the question about failure, simply because success and failure are both open to interpretation. Again, I didn't use the STAR method here because I wanted to show how you can form well-rounded and effective answers without necessarily needing to lean on the STAR method every time. So this answer does, of course, include an example, but it's not a situational example. It's an example that gives a bit more life to your opinion, that success is subjective and dependent on how each person sees success. But then I finished off at the end here with a more specific answer that will give the interviewer what they are looking for by giving examples of how two people can see success very differently. And as a bonus tip, if you were going to include something about the company values being important to you, remember to link the relevant company values to your own values that are important to you. So for example, let's say that a company has a goal on their website or somewhere online, like a press statement, about becoming carbon neutral or actively being more inclusive, or something specific like addressing the gender pay gap, or whatever values are important to you. Remember to include those ones that resonate with you in your answer, because not only does it show your values and behavior, it personalizes your answer and shows that you've done your research and looked at their website or their LinkedIn company page or somewhere online, and you care about what company you apply to. Thanks again for watching. If you haven't, like, subscribe, and if you're job hunting, I'll see you again in the next video.